Tae-soo recalls his mother's story. Her father was a member of the National Assembly, her mother a judge, and she was born out of a strategic marriage. This meant that by those standards, his mother was required to be perfect from an early age. He adds that it was a hard life, yet his mother never complained. She was flawless, complete, the very embodiment of perfection. Or at least, that's what she believed, because for her, that was life's only truth. But she never realized the emotion she had repressed until a single choice turned out imperfect. That is how love was born. More precisely, during her first year at university, she fell in love with a senior at her faculty, and then, as a result of her actions, she became pregnant. That pregnancy changed everything. Her lover vanished, and her family rejected her. That was the price of an imperfect choice. Or at least, that's how he saw his older brother, as the price his mother had paid. But at that moment, she understood something. If she was going to love, she would have to do it perfectly too. Back in the present, Tae-soo reflects that, throughout all his regressions, his mother never appeared, even once. This makes him question why she's there now. Could it be because she finally sees him as a perfect being? Or perhaps she has only come to have a perfect death? Ji-young realizes she is his mother and comments, almost amused, that he had nearly flirted with her. At the same time, he pierces her with one of his bones and instantly splits her in half. Tae-soo screams in rage, but deep within, he feels something deeper: despair, anger, anguish. He has lost his mother right before his eyes. And after that whirlwind of emotions, he calls out to Kang Ji-young, only to ask him if that was how he felt. Then, Tae-soo tells Ji-young everything: his countless deaths, his countless regressions, his final realization. But after saying everything, he confesses he won't go back in time again, and he starts to apologize. He's done something terrible to him. He's sorry for everything. Ji-young asks him why he did it. Even more, why he did it with his mother. The young man remains silent for a few seconds. Then, he lets out a faint laugh. He confesses that he doesn't know. Those are his last words, because the next instant, he loses his head. As his head rolls across the ground, his last thought is clear. This truly is the end. It's been a very long life, far too long. Han Tae-soo returned to the starting point, right where he had thrown Ji-young into the red portal. Confused, he wondered if he had come back again. With a smile, he concluded that he must have returned without realizing it, just before losing his life. Without wasting time, he activated his diamond blade and, without hesitation, decapitated his own head. It was time to die again, but there he was again, alive. Bewildered, he grabbed a spear from someone nearby and furiously struck his own face. He wanted to ensure he wouldn't return in time, but unfortunately he did. In that instant, the question struck him like lightning. What was this? He tried once more. The result was the same. Again and again, each attempt brought him back to the same point. Frustration consumed him. He muttered angrily that it was all a damn joke. Then, he raised his voice in a desperate cry, asking what they wanted from him. He had only wished to achieve realization before dying. Wasn't it enough to die with dignity? Hadn't he done the right thing before surrendering? But time offered no answers. With one last outburst of fury, he shouted to the sky that he didn't want to keep living, that he only wished to die. The desire was so intense that without hesitation, he self-destructed. And yet, there he was again, alive. In the same place, cheers and applause surrounded him. They congratulated him for winning the battle, but he heard none of it. He had only one question in mind: why and how? He screamed with all his might, cursing the entire world. It was then that Lee Yu-man approached him and asked him to calm down. Upon seeing her, Tae-soo looked at her in desperation. He knew she had the answers. He begged her to tell him what was happening. Yu-man watched him in silence before responding. She explained that, throughout his infinite regressions, he had accumulated layers of magical power, energy, that remained trapped in the timeline, twisting its causality. Time itself had closed. Now, every time he died, he would return exactly to the same point as before, no matter what he did, and from that moment on, 6 years later, inevitably, he would die at Ji-young's hands. She asked if he understood and informed him that he would keep dying, infinitely, eternally, and forever. The words echoed in his mind like an unbreakable echo. Tae-soo could barely whisper a few words, not fully comprehending, but confusion soon turned into something deeper. Finally, his voice trembled as he asked the only question that truly mattered. He wanted to know what she was. Yumin smiled slightly, and then she revealed herself. Only Tae-soo understood the meaning of her words. He was speechless. Then, little by little, he began to laugh. It was not a laugh of happiness or relief. It was a bitter laugh. A laugh mixed with a curse upon the fate that had condemned him. Time continued its course, and what was destined to happen happened once more. Ji-hyung eliminated Tae-soo, and the world began to collapse. The bone monster watched the horizon, where his army vanished into the distance, destroying everything in its path. It was then that someone approached him. It was Lee Yumin, who without warning, wrapped him in a hug. Then she thanked him for his hard work. At another moment, it is explained that the ruler of Pale has destroyed the world over and over again in an endless cycle. For an infinite time, he repeated the destruction so many times that he eventually forgot who he was and why he was doing it. Only annihilation and emptiness remained. However, one day, he felt something different: loneliness. For the first time in his existence, he rushed to create life. He tried countless times, but each attempt ended in failure, again and again, without success. Until, in a final desperate act, he tore out his own heart. A part of him remained alive. From there, a life was born, and at the same time, that life was also his daughter. Ji-hyung, upon hearing the story, refused to believe it, but Lee Yumin did not waver. With firmness, she affirmed that it was true. That girl was her. As she spoke, she began to recount a bit of her story. She said that she was human and therefore could not live in hell. From the moment she was born, she was abandoned in the early years of the earth, while the world outside the gate slowly closed. Thus, 4 billion years ago, the earth was destroyed. Lee Yumin confessed that, at that time, she only wanted to die, but due to Pale's heart, she could never find eternal rest. If she entered a dimension different from Pale's, even if she lost her life, she would always revive. The only desperation greater than immortality was the possibility that Earth would be destroyed once more, because if that happened, she would never be able to see Pale again. Loneliness and hatred were her only companions for billions of years. No one could ever understand her. Because for someone who had been alone for as long as she had, others had no meaning. However, when she loved, the loneliness of so many years vanished easily. She immersed herself in the happiness, even if it was fleeting. But as time passed, the people she loved ended up leaving this world. Even so, she did not give it much importance because she fell in love again and again. And then, one day, she had children. She saw them being born. She saw her children have grandchildren. And then, her grandchildren continued their lineage. She learned to accept goodbyes, because with each loss came the opportunity to meet new people. She confessed that over infinite time, she had loved countless times, but in the end, they all disappeared. One after another, they fell under the weight of time, and she, unchanging, remained. Only she was left behind. Loneliness settled in her bones, enveloping her like a shadow that never disappeared. Although she managed to overcome it, the pain of billions of years remained, latent and immortal. She could no longer bear it. And at that moment, for the first time, she understood her father. She understood why he had been willing to tear out his heart. It was not just a sacrifice. It was the only way to erase the weight of loneliness. It was at that instant that Pale's heart showed her the future. A single future, one in which she could see her father again. Back in the present, she revealed what she knew. In a distant future, the Bloodgate uprising would break out, and the catalyst for everything would be Kang Ji-young. The young man, astonished, questioned her words. He wanted to know what she was talking about. She responded calmly. The mere fact that he had overcome the transformation into a monster by himself and escaped from hell made him an anomaly, a future that only he could reach, one among multiple possible futures. Ji-young felt a chill run down his spine. With a trembling voice, he asked if she had been using him. He couldn't believe it. But then, doubt consumed him. He wanted to know more. Had she used his father as well? His mother? Had everything been part of her plan? Lee Yumin did not hesitate. She nodded firmly. Ji-hyung clenched his teeth. His rage exploded, and without hesitation, he prepared to eliminate her. But before he could do anything, she gently touched his forehead. In an instant, his bone armor crumbled, turning to dust. Unfazed, Lee Yumin spoke, saying that the future she saw only reached that point. Ji-hyung cursed her, but his body did not move. His anger was useless. He added that everything was her fault. But Yumin continued. As compensation, she said, she had given Taesu the most tragic death. She explained that she had trapped him in a time loop, condemned to die and revive infinitely at her hands. Taesu would eventually understand the reason for her decision. Then, with chilling calmness, she asked him not to worry. Everything would end soon. She knew that only in the same dimension as her father could she die, and if she disappeared, her father would too. That was the day she understood Bayo's loneliness, and she made her decision. She would see her father again, and she would destroy the world. Then she would use her own death to end him as well. As she spoke, she began to extract her heart, because only then would the cycle of loneliness end. For a moment, her thoughts drifted to Ji-hyung. Perhaps that was what he needed as well, because although he had endured unbearable pain for his mother, he had never found rest. What he felt for her was not love, it was only loneliness. Love in the end was nothing more than a cruel illusion to fill the voids in the heart. It could make one forget loneliness, but it also etched it even more deeply into the soul. Love was nothing more than a curse, and now everything had to come to an end, extracting the heart and destroying it.
And with that, we've reached the end of this week's chapter. If you made it all the way to the end, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this chapter in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe so our community can keep growing and we can reach more fans like you. See you in the next video. In the meantime, if you're from the near future, I'll leave you the next chapter and a comic you're sure to enjoy. Thank you for being part of this adventure.